My people now see Jack Joel. I beg, I want to listen to the clip of this Dele Farotimi. He's been on this election from day one, and he has his own facts. We are not saying that he's perfect or that anybody that brings any news is perfect, but sometimes we'll still try to get some ideas, and then some facts too, a little bit from within anybody they bring come. We'll not say anybody they perfect. When I listen to this guy, he seemed to make a lot of sense in his points. When I listen to him, then I make a contribution by commenting and liking too. When I take care, and I Jack Joel. We will refresh ourselves, they go small. And I take care. Bye.
The figures that were released in Lagos State as the presidential election result were already doctored before they were released. It has no basis in reality. Yes, Labour Party won.
Do you have any evidence?
Oh yes, there is more than sufficient evidence. Where INEC has become completely unreliable in terms of declaration of result, I will not even rely on the result that we have in our situation room. If I go by what PDP released in the public space, is more than sufficient. PDP said Peter Obi and Labour Party had over 900,000 votes in Lagos State. They had a little over 100,000, and APC had the same. The truth of the matter is that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was roundly rejected in Lagos State. It wasn't just the Igbos. It wasn't about the Igbos rejecting him. He was rejected across the length and breadth of Lagos State because it was a referendum on his 24 years rule and hegemony in the state. So when you now heard the INEC people announcing a result that was supposedly so close with such depressed voters number, I remember that I was on Arise maybe a couple of days after that result was released, and I said at the time very clearly that this result is not reflective of what happened. At my polling booth, they were counting votes up until 1:43 a.m. in the morning. My wife did not vote until around 8:30 in the evening. And so the same happened across the length and breadth of Lagos, despite the best effort of those who were bent on disrupting the elections. So when they brought out the figure, I said immediately that one, it was not as close as they would like to pretend that it was. It wasn't close, it was a whitewash. However, in order to validate the lies that they have to tell and the tribal hatred that they are stirring up, they had to portray a close election so that the script that they have already written for this Saturday's election might be legitimized in all the nonsense they are doing. So number one, we must be clear about something. The first duty of a state is the protection of citizens. When you have a situation where citizens are being attacked and people are being singled out for attack, you had the one in Niger-Ododo, one Bale in Niger-Ododo or Kabiesi in Niger-Ododo, suddenly remembering that he wants to worship Oro and is declaring Oro during the period when people should be out.
Well, I think we've had a clarification on that. He said the Oro rights will go up until Friday.
If you have had clarification on that, there was another one in social media today, some bearded clown talking about another Oro again. Yet this was the same person that was caught on camera during the presidential poll. So you have a situation where you can speak about the political class in a situation where you have a political class. What we're dealing with is a criminal class that is determined to hold the people down by force of arms or whatever it takes. They are making this about tribe because there is no record to place before the people. We've had 24 years. If the people are allowed to vote in a free and fair election, these people are over. That's the truth. They have no record to place before the people. Only intimidation, blackmail, ethnic division, religious division, all sorts of divisions in order to keep the people from seeing the truth of what they should be facing. Talking about the fact that we are not a country governed by law, and that we are a country governed by impunity, that our policemen pretend to uphold the law, but they know that they dare not uphold the laws. If they tried it, their political masters will end up in prison cells. So what you end up having is the administration of impunity, and that is what governs Nigeria. There, people saw pictures. There, right there, in broad daylight, policeman standing, the evidence of the state. In Yoruba language, you call policemen Olopa. Olopa actually emanates from the person who carries the staff of office. The Oba staff of office is insignia and authority. So in the Yoruba's mind, the Olopa is the symbol and representation of the state. You saw policemen at multiple locations standing aside while thugs, quote and unquote, we call them thugs, but they are not thugs. These are stakeholders in the governance of the state. If people get the kind of government they deserve. The Nigerian people can blame Tinubu, they can blame Abiola and Obasanjo, blame this, blame that. Ultimately, they bear the responsibility for the governance of their country. When you find people who knows the truth but finds a basis to justify their hatred, which blinds them from what they should see, they are telling you all of a sudden that a person born of a Yoruba parent to an Igbo mother is no longer a Yoruba. They are justifying hatred. These same people were so progressive in their thinking that they were the first to start appointing Igbo commissioners. There is somebody from Kano in Lagos State. So they are progressive when they need to be, but when it serves their purposes to demonize in order to divide, they remember very quickly. All of a sudden, is no. Look, at the end of the day, they want us to have these asinine debates, debating nonsense when we should be facing issues. The judiciary is the last hope of the common man, an often repeated quotation. But the unfortunate reality of the Nigerian is that our judiciary is not the last refuge of anybody but the rich. The poor will get judgment. The rich will get justice. I rarely talk about my own issues. I speak to national issues, but I was grievously wounded in my private space by the powers that be in this state. And I went to court. You know, they tell you, go to court. Just like you are counseling what they might be able to do, these people who are aggrieved. I went to court. 3 years after, I'm still in court. My case hasn't been called for one day like this in this court. Our governance system does not flow from our free will. It flows from a military imperative, and that is Decree 24 of 1999. If that document had flown directly from our own will, if it was an expression of our sovereign will, the first president that served using that constitution would have respected our will and understood that he gained power by virtue of our will. But because they had never respected our will, it has always been up to them to decide what to do at any point in time because they are not bound by the law. So we are in a situation where the Nigerian people would have to, on their own, determine what is in their best interest. And then, as far as I'm concerned, the only way to change this system is by a revolution. The only thing I will not sanction is violence. But I believe that we are getting to a point where this system is demanding a head-on confrontation, because if I cannot go to court to find justice, surely I must find justice somewhere. If that means I'm chaining myself to a bridge to demand that you are either going to... the only thing is no violence. The word revolution comes from a French word, revolver. What does it mean? It means to turn around. It simply means turn around. The way we are going, our trajectories, is not suggestive of sustainability. It should be clear to anyone who is looking at our situation that you can't sustain this. Whoever becomes the president of Nigeria on May 20, whatever it is, would have to contend with 77 trillion in debt. That person would have to contend with the fact that you have massive youth unemployment, would have to contend with broken systems. That person cannot also have a crisis of legitimacy. That is the first one. Beyond that, whoever that person is, the person would of course have to dialogue with the Nigerian people, because there are a lot of hardships waiting in front. You can't lead people by force. You need to have their consensus. So where we're going, revolutions does not necessarily mean violence. The only reason it came to be associated with violence in Nigeria particularly was that each time the military jumped into our processes, they named themselves revolutionary councils. And yet, the only thing revolutionary about them was their capacity for stealing. There was nothing revolutionary about our lives. They called themselves Revolutionary Council, and it happened all over Africa. Each time one military bandit grabbed power, he would name himself revolutionary this, revolutionary that. So they demonized the word. Revolution simply means turn around. What we had on the 25th of February, that they are trying to destroy, was a revolution, no less. People, it's completely a choice. It is up to the individual to decide whether they want to live or whether they want to exist. I would rather die standing up for what I believe to be the truth than to live to a ripe old age devoid of the capacity to speak the truth.